It's 1999. You're at the video store, flipping through wrestling VHS tapes when you stumble across something called Kawasaki Dream Tournament. The cover shows Mick Foley for some reason and other wrestlers bathed in blood, surrounded by barbed wire and broken glass. You buy it for $5 out of morbid curiosity, and what you see changes everything you thought you knew about pro wrestling. That time period is over though. Today, you can't attend most indie wrestling shows without seeing at least one death match. I mean, you could easily find guys falling through 8-spike tables, getting bashed with light tubes, and bleeding out, all for $50 and a hot dog. So how did we get here? How did something that was once buried in the deepest recesses of Japanese ECW and CZW wrestling tapes become so mainstream that most indie promotions and some top wrestling companies are booking death matches? We're gonna find out. Today, we're cutting deep into the sometimes nasty evolution of deathmatch wrestling from underground to mainstream, all to find out how deathmatch wrestling got popular. Before we get going here though, I know deathmatch wrestling is a pretty controversial topic. A lot of people like it, a lot of people don't. So let me know what side of the fence you're on in the comments below. It's a chain link barbed wire fence, by the way. But to understand deathmatch wrestling's exploding barbed wire explosion, we need to look back to where it all began. And while hardcore wrestling did exist in the US through sickos like Wild Bull Curry and classy Freddie Blassie in the 1950s and 60s, the real deathmatch was born in Japan. In 1989, Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, FMW, was founded as the first promotion dedicated largely to the deathmatch style. But FMW didn't stop at chairs and tables. No. They escalated to new levels: barbed wire ropes times C4 explosives, exploding wire ropes, and landmines? At the time, this was something new, the Electric Slide Part 2. Here's the key part though. These matches were initially only accessible in the West through hard-to-find VHS tapes that hardcore wrestling fans would trade like underground currency. You couldn't just flip to CBS and catch a death match. You had to know a guy who knew a guy who had a dubbed copy of FMW Volume 8 or something in their basement. Then you had to go to his house after school and have a conversation with his mother or something. Or I mean, if it was 2007, you could hit up MTV for Wrestling Society X, baby, for a Piranha death match with Pitbull on commentary, but that's neither here nor there. The exclusivity created a mystique. The grainy, poorly translated tapes showed wrestlers doing things that seemed impossible on television at the time. Terry Funk throwing guys into barbed wire, Atsushi Onita surviving explosions, matches ending with both men looking like they'd have been better off in a car crash. For American wrestling fans tired of the increasingly corporate WWF and WCW, these tapes represented something raw and real. They were getting a glimpse into a world where wrestling wasn't just predetermined entertainment, it was just violence. Cold, hard violence. And the deathmatch scene might have remained underground forever if not for one crucial development: ECW. ECW became the bridge between Japanese ultraviolence and American audiences. ECW imported the aesthetic and weapons, but made it slightly more palatable for American TV, only slightly. Suddenly, you didn't need those expensive Japanese imports. You could just see Terry Funk, Sabu, and Mick Foley doing versions of these same spots on basic cable on Tuesday night. But here's what ECW really did. It created an entire generation of wrestlers who grew up watching this style of wrestling. Kids who were 12 years old in 1995 watching Sabu put himself through tables covered in barbed wire were turning 18 in 2001, ready to start wrestling themselves. And what did they want to do? Oh, I don't know. ECW proved there was an actual market for this. The crowds didn't just tolerate the violence, they wanted it. They craved it. Now, when ECW went out of business in 2001, all those wrestlers trained in hardcore techniques didn't just disappear. They spread out across major promotions and the indie landscape, carrying that DNA with them. And if ECW was a gateway drug, then Combat Zone Wrestling, or CZW, was the full addiction. Founded in 1999, CZW took the violence that ECW had made famous and ramped it up a bit. And like spawning the Antichrist during a rainstorm of blood, CZW produced the Tournament of Death, an annual deathmatch event that emanates from a field in Delaware. And boy, does it live up to the name. CZW also produced stars. Jon Moxley cut his teeth, probably literally, in CZW death matches. Nick Mondo, or Sick Nick Mondo, became a legend for taking a powered-on weed whacker to the stomach and later being dropped 40 feet from a roof through tables and light tubes. Legendary stuff. These were career-making moments that wrestlers could carry with them for life, and other promoters took notice. Now, within the last decade, the scene ditched professional wrestling's formalities and teamed up with a lot of local bars. So you kind of can catch a death match in a lot of different cities around the US. Not to mention the grip it has on the indie scene. I've been to a ton of indie shows in my day, and I've seen quite a few death matches. A 2005. So why do wrestling fans love death matches? It's the question that Jim Cornette's been asking since he was born. What's the psychological appeal of watching two people legitimately hurt each other? First, there's the authenticity factor. In an era where every other form of entertainment feels manufactured and focus grouped, deathmatch wrestling offers something genuinely unpredictable. Some of the wrestlers know how to fall and get cut in a way that produces the highest visual effect, and it is a form of art, but it is also dangerous, and by the account of some, it might be needless. Second, there's a tribal aspect. Deathmatch wrestling creates incredibly tight-knit communities. I remember attending a GCW show in Atlantic City, and I have never seen people gravitate more to a public figure ever than these GCW fans did to Nick Gage. He is literally a god to some folks. It's nuts. You gotta see it for yourself if you haven't already. But third, and maybe most importantly, there's this cathartic release in this. Deathmatch wrestling offers a space where primal violence is celebrated. It's the same reason to me that horror movies exist. Some people need to experience extreme emotions in that controlled environment. Maybe not around fluorescent light tubes where they can get little particles in your mouth, but like, you know what I mean, controlled enough. But here's the issue. Success has bred some oversaturation. What was once special because it was on rare VHS tapes and in some field in Delaware is now everywhere. GCW holds deathmatch tournaments. ICW No Holds Barred has become, quote, the current standard bearer for American deathmatch wrestling. Even tiny indie promotions feel pressure to book at least one hardcore match per show. And the result of this is a spot fest mentality. Wrestlers trying to top each other with increasingly dangerous stunts without storytelling foundation that made the original Japanese death matches quite special. And now that's bled a bit into major promotions like AEW, where the Texas death match has become a yearly occurrence, at least in the promotion. And not to belabor the failed exploding barbed wire death match during the pandemic, but that is something I could also call out if I wanted to, which I did. But the mainstream shock demand for death matches has led to shows like GCW being sold out. It's led to Jon Moxley taking a spiked bat to the back on national television. It's led to Nick Gage using a pizza cutter on Chris Jericho during a Domino's ad. And of course, it's led to tons of videos of random dudes on the indies taking insane bumps, ridiculous bumps. So has deathmatch wrestling gone too far? That depends on your perspective. What started as an underground curiosity has become so mainstream that you can watch it in bars across America on most weekends. And I do think on some level that the mystique is gone, but the audience has never been bigger. And whether that means evolution or degradation depends on what you value more, exclusivity or accessibility. And by the way, I'm not trying to yuck your yum. If you're a big deathmatch guy, that's your prerogative. I like a deathmatch once in a while. I think I like a deathmatch when it's the blow off of a big storyline. If I just show up at an indie show and two guys start hitting each other with light tubes, I'm like, yeah, crazy. But like, I'm sorry that you have to do this to make me care. One thing is definitely for sure, deathmatch wrestling isn't going anywhere. As long as there are wrestlers willing to bleed and fans who are willing to watch, there will be someone ready to set up light tubes in the back room of a dive bar. The question to me isn't whether it's gone too far or not, it's whether it can find its way back to being special again. So what's your take? Has the oversaturation of deathmatch wrestling ruined what made it unique, or has it increased the accessibility, made it better? Whatever it is, y'all, hope you had fun today, hope you learned something, and in the meantime, I'll catch you.
Oooh Chavo!